This is Creative Banter. We start off strong this episode by discussing bladder control, which somehow leads us somewhat nicely into discussing the correlation between motivation and meeting our needs. As we riff on sleep and stress, we chat about deadlines and presentations, as well as Ben's use of a 100-mile bicycle ride as a reward. And while on the topic of cycling, we talk about how, at the end of the day, we just want to feel good. Let's dive right into this, shall we?
I was going to have Oliver in my lap this time, but he seemed more interested in laying in the sun outside. So
I can't say I blame him.
I know, right?
If I could lay out in the sun outside in California, I would.
Yeah.
Not something I want to do in Pennsylvania, though, right now. It's like, I don't know, what is the temperature outside? Like 38, 35?
Wow. Yeah,
something
so
like that.
it's full on feeling wintry out there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You guys
Not
get
exactly
any snow at all or anything?
No, I mean, flurries the last week and intermittently seeing a lot of frost on the ground as I'm taking Emmy out in the middle of the night. It's nice, like sparkles with the flashlight reflecting.
It does look pretty. It really does.
It does. Yeah. I mean, it almost makes the tremendous lack of sleep that I've had the past 2 months worth it. But no major snow or anything yet. So we'll see. I'm hoping for something, but I don't know. That's probably won't be until January, February that we usually get a dumping or two of snow.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my plans for next year is to try and synchronize my winter trip to Zion with a fresh snowfall again. Didn't quite work out last year. Just some other plans and stuff cropped up whenever there was a good storm on the way. But I think I'd like to try again for that this year.
Yeah.
And they're they get like 2 or 3 a year. There's also been times when I think I'm set for it, but then the storm kind of fizzles out while I'm there. But then I head home and then I see like the following week has like the monster storm that's going to arrive. It's like,
of course it does. I think it always works out that way.
Oh yeah. That's always the way it's going to work out. But I think that would be a fun thing to try for again. See how that goes. But how much longer do you have of with Emmy before she's able to make it through the night?
I have no idea. I think she just likes to play games at night and just be like, all right, I'm going to give him 2 days off where I'm going to sleep pretty much through the night. I'm only going to wake him up at like 5 or 5:30, which is all right. That's fine. That's typical.
Yeah, it's close enough.
Yeah, exactly. And then she's like, all right, I've been doing that for like 2 or 3 nights in a row. Now I'm going to wake him up every other hour on the hour. Yeah. And I'm going to go outside and I'm going to pee and we're going to come back in and he's going to get right into that position where the sleep is just getting good and I'm going to wake him up again. So it's tough to say. I mean, my parents' dog, Lucy, she sleeps with them in the bed, has for since they first got her, really. And sleeps through the night just fine now at this point.
Yeah. And
I think a lot of that has to do with Emmy being a much smaller dog. So smaller dog, smaller bladder.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It takes a little bit longer to maintain that bladder control kind of thing. I don't know. I mean, I'm hoping that by January we will be able to like sleep through the night and not have any issues. But then she's going to be spayed. So I don't know if there's going to be any regression there or what exactly to expect with that. So as much as my girlfriend and I want her in bed with us and to be able to trust her to sleep through the night with us, in that kind of circumstance, I gotta wait. We gotta wait until after she's spayed, like 2 weeks after she's spayed or so, figure out how she is through the night and just hope. I mean, I can't really blame her because, like I said, she's only like, I think 9 pounds now. So she's very tiny
Yeah.
So, and like, there are days where I can't even go with like 2 hours without going to the bathroom, like depending on what I'm drinking and everything. So, you know, it's, and I'm much bigger than her. So,
yeah.
But, you know.
Yeah. I hadn't thought about that in terms of, you know, as they're growing, you know, when they're little is when that's more of the issue. And once they kind of reach the size, that's when they kind of reach that point. So that, I mean, that makes perfect sense. But you know, since we got Oliver when he was already 1 year old, so we didn't go through any of those experiences as much. I was trying very hard not to say the word journey because I don't like that word. So I just grabbed at anything experiences is working fine for me for that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So like I said, I'm hoping that January or so after she's spayed, we'll be able to go through the night in one foul swoop and not have to worry about it. I mean, like I said, I don't care if she wakes me up at 5 or 5:30, right around that area, because she'll wake us up, or wake me up, I should say. And then I'll put her in bed with me because my girlfriend starts to get up and get ready for work at that point. So it makes sense that she would be up around then because there's movement going wrong around in that area. So I'm fine with that. But the whole waking me up putting her in bed at 9:30, waking me up at 11, and then again at 2, and then at 5 is like, come on now. Like,
that's a little much, but
really.
But it'll be good when she's outgrown that, and those will be nice. Though you'll still look back at these days and like, oh, I remember when, and it's funny how that works. We just have a selective memory when it comes to just remembering the positive things. We don't remember the negative things. It is kind of crazy how we are programmed like that.
Yeah.
There'll be things where, like looking back, you know, my wife will say, oh, remember the time when whatever, you know, happened. And I'm like, honestly, I really don't. I do remember having like, you know, great, I don't know, piece of cake somewhere or something. I don't know. Like, you know, you remember the good things. So it's just the way that we're programmed, you know? Yeah.
I was talking to my therapist because past few months I've been going to therapy every other week, just virtual sessions, which is actually going a lot better than it did the first time I went to therapy back in 2014, I want to say it was. And one of the things that we were talking about was motivation the other week. And it ties right into this whole, my lack of sleep and all of that, because we were talking about like how unmotivated I am to get literally anything done. Like the fact that when it comes to working on presentations or ebooks or writing any photography stuff, like I have really no motivation to get stuff done with that.
Yeah.
But when it comes to, well, then she asked me, she's like, well, we have to think about motivation in a different way, because you still do the dishes when they need to get done, right? And you still brush your teeth and shower, make your bed. You do all of these household chores and everything still, and everything's still getting done. Even if, the dishes some days might pile up, it's still getting done. And I'm like, that's getting done.
Yeah.
And she was like, well, we have to think about motivation as an emotion, kind of like happiness, where it's something that we all want to maintain. It's all something that we want to achieve, but it's still going to be around even for those things that we don't want to be doing. So like when it comes to doing household chores, nobody wants to do the dishes. Like you don't wake up in the morning and you're like, oh, I can't wait to do the dishes today.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I can't wait to go outside and mow the lawn unless there's...
I kind of enjoy that actually. But I'm strange. Yeah.
I was waiting for you to say one of them.
Yeah. I don't mind doing dishes. I don't mind doing dishes. I don't look forward to it, but I do love mowing the lawn.
But the majority of us, there are a lot of chores that we are doing that we have to do each day, each week, whatever, that we don't like to do, but we still get done. And she was saying that when it comes to like writing and all these other things, they kind of have to be treated in that same way, that same vein of this is something that has to get done. for X, Y, or Z reason. And even if that reason is just because I enjoy doing it, because it's something that I want to do, so it has to be done. And I have to sit down here and struggle through the really boring part of staring at the computer screen with a blinking cursor until words finally start flowing out and my fingers start moving.
Yeah.
And one of the other things that she mentioned about all of this was that it's really hard for you to have motivation to do anything, even the things that like household chores, if you're not meeting your needs. And this is the part that really stuck out to me about everything, because she was like, if you're not eating well enough, if you're not sleeping well enough, if you're not taking care of your body in general, not exercising, if you're not meeting your body and your mind's needs, you're not going to be able to function regardless what you want to do, regardless how bad you want to write this essay so that you can help other people or whatever.
Yeah. Which makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. And especially it makes sense if I think back to how unmotivated I have been since, let's say, September or so, August. All of this coming up is a major amount of stress throughout the summer, and especially at that point because I don't have a job. I'm still unable to get a job. I just got denied yesterday or today from a university for a photographer position. Not even teaching photography, but being a photographer. And they're like, no, sorry, we went with someone else with better qualifications.
So, do they have a podcast with more listeners or something? Do they have like
they have
14 listeners instead of our 12 and a half? I mean, like, I don't know. That's but that's absolutely bizarre. Yeah.
But like I'd say, the stress of the job situation and everything, of then getting Emmy and the stress that comes with her and the lack of sleep, like we were talking about, my general poor diet because of not having the motivation, not wanting to do anything. It all culminates into this whole thing of not meeting my needs in certain areas and therefore not being able to maintain that motivation, that drive, that energy level really to do much of anything. Like, yeah, I just thought it was a very interesting take, and it's been on my mind since we talked about it maybe a month ago now at this point.
Yeah. So what is your plan, if you have one, to go about changing that?
The sleep thing is tough to try and alter.
That's a tough one. There's a puppy.
Yeah, exactly. That's not really my choice. It's not like I'm choosing to go to bed at 10 o'clock and wake up every other hour and not get good sleep. Like,
yeah.
So obviously that's not within my control right now. But when it comes to the diet aspects and feeling my body better, as we've talked about in the past, and as we are sure to continue talking about, it's a work in progress and something that I am slowly trying to alter in order to meet those needs, to better just treat my body better, I guess is the best way of saying it. And then when it comes to the stress aspect, it's funny because like my way of getting around the stress of not being able to get a job is by figuring out like presentations or ebooks or something else with photography related, writing related, that I can do to bring in some kind of additional income.
Yeah.
So, which of course brings on a different level of stress. So
yeah,
it's just, when it comes to that, especially, and when it comes to most of this, it's a matter of me just trying to take each step or each day, like bit by bit, and realizing that something will eventually come around. Because if you don't believe in that, then, well, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking about that. And for me, I think the motivation to do all the work is twofold. And the motivation even to start working on the work, I should say, even. One of them is that I hate having things hanging over my head. And And so like when I did the, when I launched the pre-orders for the portfolios and the zines and all that back in August, the orders come in, but as more orders come in, you have like this more weight like hanging over the top of me. And I just want to work as hard as I can to get out from underneath that weight so I can start, getting to the point where I can fulfill the orders and do all that sort of stuff. And then once that weight begins to lessen a little bit, then I have to motivate myself with something else. And so that would be in the last episode, we were talking about how when I was done shipping out all the portfolios, I wanted to go for like an 80-mile ride, which I did the next day. And that was great because it just kind of gave me that little bit of motivation. As I was working on the folios, just like, hey, this is something I could do. This would be fun. And now this week I've been going through all the zines and trying to get those all mailed out. And then once I'm done with that, tomorrow I have jury duty.
Oh boy.
So
that's fun.
Yeah. So it falls apart.
Yeah.
What's with the timing on this sort of stuff? I mean, it's like, this is like the busiest time of year for me, and I have all this work to get done, and I'm almost at the finish line. And then I get the little notice in the mail saying, yeah, on the day when you're supposed to be done, when you could otherwise maybe reward yourself, you're going to have to wear a button-down shirt and go in and try to not get picked.
Yeah.
It'll be like,
yeah.
It'll be like playing Foursquare all over again, but the opposite. Like, don't pick me, don't pick me, don't pick me. Don't, I don't want to be a kickball team or whatever,
Meanwhile, there's me where I have nothing going on for most of the days, and besides sending out an abundant amount of emails trying to get people to write for the magazine, and they're like, no, we're not going to try and call you back again. Not this early.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. It is a strange thing when it comes to the sense of motivation behind it. But also I have, certainly more bills to pay than you do. So that's another thing like that hangs over my head. That is the sort of thing where like, I know I have to do this sort of stuff. And also I feel a little bad about the fact that I haven't even posted the videos, from the fall trip yet, but I can't really work on those until I've mailed out all the zines and all the print portfolios and stuff. 'Cause then I'd feel bad that, there's, people waiting for the stuff that they ordered back in August. So I don't know how that all relates, but it almost seems as though you need to find if there's some way to set yourself up so you have that weight hanging over your head of, I need to do this or else, which obviously in your position, I'm sure you have that feeling already, I need a job, all that sort of good stuff.
But I think that's like you were saying about me not having the same amount of bills as what you do.
Yeah.
Like, there's no comparison there. Like, I have really no bills to pay whatsoever besides the bills that I kind of create for myself outside of, like my car insurance and stuff. Yeah. Because I'm very fortunate in that I don't have living expenses and food bills and that kind of thing unless I make them of my own. So it's kind of one of those stupid situations where I want a job so that way, obviously, I have more spending money. That way I can have a true savings account that isn't also acting as an emergency fund. And that way I can build up some kind of some amount of money to possibly one day, when the economy is a little bit more forgiving, move out of my parents' house.
Yeah.
But the problem with not having any kind of bills too is that what I'm making from working as editor for Nature Vision magazine is enough to cover me.
Yeah. So you don't necessarily have the motivation to reach far beyond that as much.
Right. It's difficult to kind of look at things in a way of, oh, I need to do this because I need to make the money, when I look at my accounts and I'm like, I'm good. Like, I'm better off than what I thought that I was. I'm not where I want to be, but this is maintainable, at least for the foreseeable future. If something happens where spring or the new year comes along and I don't have a job by February, March, April, whatever, I'm still good. Like I'm still okay with how everything's going.
Yeah.
If for some reason David texts me one day and is like, hey, you're done, then things are going to change.
Yeah. No formality. Is like, hey, buddy, you're done.
Yeah, exactly. He just sends me a text and he's like, yeah, sorry, dude, you're out.
He's a very formal guy. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. but still, it's one of those things of, I think that's what is, as stupid as it sounds, what's allowing me to procrastinate as much on these different things. Like I said before, I want to build up a presentation and start presenting to camera clubs and try that gamut of the photographic world and see how that goes. But it's taking me forever because I don't have that. Besides the little intrinsic motivation that there's nothing else pushing me to do it. Yeah. It's something that I want to do, but I'm okay not doing right now too. So I'm in that weird space.
You almost need to set yourself up for it by taking on a presentation at a camera club before you have it made, kind of something where it's like, this is a hard, fast deadline. When you were in school, were you pretty good about when there's like deadlines for assignments? Were you the type that would get them done fairly early, or would you just kind of squeak by at the last minute?
Squeak by at the last minute.
Yeah, I was kind of the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always wanted to be the person that would get them done first, but I never. Yeah. I would always put it off. Yeah.
Exactly. Ever since I remember being in first, second grade and having little assignments that are due in a week or two, and I'd wait until the night before to get them done. I'd be that kid. I was that kid that would go up to my parents and be like, hey, do we have construction paper somewhere? They're like, It's 10 o'clock. You should be in bed. Like, yeah, well, I got this presentation for science that I have to do tomorrow, and I need construction paper and scissors and glue and markers and all of this other stuff, and I need to make a diorama of the universe. Can you help me? I wasn't quite that bad, but nonetheless, the procrastination has stuck with me, which is unfortunate. But
I think that there is an answer in there somewhere in terms of you almost have to put the cart before the horse, or to force yourself to have some sort of deadline, because I know that there's a lot of people that work very well when they're under pressure. I wouldn't say that I fall in that category. I like to have just the sweet spot where there is not a ton of pressure, but at the same time, I know I got to get it done. So I'm not a complete last minute sort of person, but I know that some people thrive in that situation and they can be pretty creative and come up with some good stuff in a short period of time. But I think it's a matter of finding ways to give yourself deadlines, but not just for yourself. It's something where there's something else riding upon it, whether it's a presentation or whether it's pre-selling something that you haven't made yet, something where you have that weight hanging over you where it's like, oh man, I gotta get to work. I gotta do this. And then there's no question about what needs to get done or when it needs to get done. It's gotta get done.
Yeah. 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 I mean, the one thing that I was talking, I was filling up the wood bins today for our fireplace inside, and I was thinking to myself about the presentations in particular, and I was kind of just thinking I want to get on this. I want to start building this out. And one of my biggest issues when it comes to presentations in particular is the fact that I've never done one before. So it's really difficult to figure out how exactly to go about it.
Yeah.
And they're not something that I've really had any interest in watching other people do of them, besides the occasional guy tall or whoever else may have put one out. So I was thinking to myself, well, first of all, I want to have one done by February. So right there, February 1st, we'll call it, is my deadline for putting together a presentation. And then I was thinking, well, how can I go about writing or putting this together that is in a way that feels natural to me, where I don't really have to overthink things. And then I was thinking about it a little bit more. And I'm like, why can't I just write an article on the topic that I want and then cut that into pieces, throw it into slide form, and then call it a day?
That does make perfect sense, because the presentation is basically kind of bullet points anyways. And if you've written something that you're kind of piecing together and then you make the presentation out of it, I mean, that seems like a perfect pairing of the different formats.
Yeah. To kind of get an idea of how other people do their presentations and all of that. I've been watching a couple that are hosted on, Nick Stover's program, the nature photography classes.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched a little bit of one of Guy's, and then one of from Charlotte Gibb. And for Charlotte, she was pretty much just talking through a bunch of examples of photographs that she used, talking about composition and how she sees composition there. Yeah. Which is a very, very dumbed down version of what she was doing and everything, of course. But still, that's the general gist of it, was that she would have a presentation saying, okay, in this section, I'm going to talk about balance and visual flow. And then she'd go into, here's an example of the rule of odds, and talking about that. And then using her own photographs, showing bad photographs that she's taken, and ways that it doesn't work, the little tricks that she picked up, all of that kind of stuff. And then you have, on the opposite spectrum of that, you have Guy, who is showing a bunch of quotes and everything, especially in the beginning of his one, from different authors, from definitions of different words and stuff, and then talking through all of this. And it's really just relying on his own talking for things instead of the visual aspect.
Yeah.
So just from watching those two, I'm like, so there's really no true wrong way of doing a presentation like this.
No.
So to me, like I said, it just makes sense that, okay, I'm going to figure out this topic. I'm going to pinpoint, this is what I want to write about for a presentation, because it's something that means something to me. And I'm going to write an article on it, and then I'm just going to chop it up and put it into a presentation form and see how it goes. Yeah. So I think that's the plan for right now.
Yeah. If I think of some of the presentations I've seen through the years, and there's been some online, there's also been some in person. It seems like the ones that have a bit more lasting power, the ones where there's some sort of specific takeaway from it, that I think you have to kind of go out of your way to make it, obvious that's the takeaway from that particular thing. That's the thing that you're building up to for whatever reason, because that's the memorable part of it. But I think it's kind of interesting when the presenter takes you down a path where, they know where they're going. They know all the stuff along the way, but you don't really, you as a viewer, you don't really necessarily know where it's going. It's very enjoyable throughout it, but it's not predictable. It's not too basic. But there is some sort of big takeaway at the end that maybe makes you look at things from a little bit of a different perspective. And I think that's the sort of thing that would come well from, starting with a article and then sort of adapting that to a presentation. Because it seems like with articles, there's always that one piece of information that is basically what the article is about. And it seems like that would adapt pretty well for a presentation and then finding all the images that kind of, work in there and are sort of supporting of the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's at least one of my plans for now. Finally start getting onto that and see where that goes in between sending out emails.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
Speaking on that real quick, for those listening, I'm just going to throw it out there. If anybody listening thinks that they would want to write an article or contribute to Nature Vision magazine at any point, send me an email. It's just send it to the email in the show notes description. That's fine. And let me know. I definitely would appreciate having some newer voices trying to, like I've said in the past, give a platform to those who may not otherwise have that opportunity. So, yeah, if you enjoy writing, if you want to try your hand at writing something more in the line of creativity and that kind of deal, just send me an email. Or if you're just curious about what we are looking for exactly, then that's fine too. Just send me your questions. It would be a big help so that I'm not staring at a computer screen and sending out cold emails to the hundreds of other photographers and hoping. So
and that is, I mean, it is, I think, pretty nice when there are perspectives from people that may not have as big of a following, because they'll bring something more to it than, because it seems like so much of the stuff oftentimes it's like, oh, I've heard this before to some degree and this and that, but it's fresh perspectives are always a nice thing. So I think that would be a kind of a fun thing if someone's listening to this and like, hey, I know how to write. I know how to take pictures. I can write articles. I've got it's a theme,
It sounds so dumb, but it is very difficult to find photographers or artists in general who can also put together a cohesive article or cohesive piece of writing. And that's what makes it so much more challenging for me as editor to try and find these people, because obviously we don't want to just maintain the same rotation of Guy Tall and Krista McCush and all of these other people. We want to have new voices, but there are a lot of photographers out there who are like, yeah, I'm going to stick to my YouTube channel because I can talk about photography, but I can't put the words into writing that makes sense. So
you also wonder if at some point some of the people that are very good at writing, but they know that there's, they want a little more diversity in hearing from other voices, whether there might be some disguises that come out and some alter egos that come out. So, I mean, it might not be Guy Tall. It might be Tall Guy that, has a mustache and like a fedora on and has some articles that are strangely similar to Guy Tall. So I don't know. Maybe there'll be a April Fool's Day episode or issue of the magazine, and I don't know, some little Mad Magazine style.
Yeah.
Spy versus spy, But speaking of lots of work, so I'm basically almost done mailing out the zines, and I will say it's monotonous. I'm grateful. I mean, I'm happy to be doing it, but it is monotonous, especially when I have what I know I really should have been. I should have had like the Zion video series go live like a month ago, basically. But I'm working my way through it, and much like my reward for getting the portfolios in the mail, now I'm at the point where like once I have the zines in the mail, other than the jury duty, I do want to at some point do the 100-mile ride, because after our last episode, I did the 80 miles, and it's been kind of an interesting learning curve from that standpoint that, I've really learned how many calories I should be consuming when I'm out there. And it was 81.79 miles, and I still had plenty of energy when I was done. And it's interesting because I think I can sort of take what I've learned from that and then implement it more on my photo trips. Cause I don't think that the amount of calories I burn when cycling is all that different from a long day of hiking.
Probably not.
Yeah, because cycling is more like fast walking. It's not like running. It's kind of like walking, but just a little bit more than that.
I mean, I can't speak on the accuracy of it, but I know that it's when I'm doing the 7 or so mile cycling at the gym, it's for about half hour that it takes me or so, it's about 260 calories is what it claims, at least.
Yeah.
So it's definitely not as much as what running would be or real strenuous hiking, but I could see it being, for someone like you, being pretty parallel to your usual hikes.
Yeah, and actually just out of curiosity, so I looked up, so I have a Fitbit, I looked up my calories burned on when I did the 81-mile ride. And that day it was 5,388 is what the Fitbit is estimating. Now, if I go back,
geez, it's more than I eat in like 3 days.
Yeah. And the thing is, like the following day, I was not especially. I wasn't sore. I was slightly drained, but not much. So now I'm looking at the stats for my my trip to Zion. And so one day was 3,500 calories, 3,500, 3,400. So it looks like, and then 3,700. So it looks like I'm right around 3,500 calories a day on those trips. And I know I'm not taking in enough to make up for that. But what I'm really curious about is if I can go all the way back to my, there's like a little calendar thing, which I hit thinking it'd pull up a calendar, but brought me to today.
Oh,
so
of course.
Keep going back, yeah. But I'm really curious about the backpacking trip. But in short, I've learned based on the cycling stuff that I probably should be putting like some of the Gatorade mix in just with the water I drink during the day when I go on the trip, so I can just consume more calories that way.
Yeah.
And I think that would be beneficial on the trips, because I think it would just allow me to keep the energy up, just because, you know, otherwise I'm just burning so many calories out there. And now, when you're cycling, when you kind of hit your limit, you hit the limit pretty hard. All of a sudden it's just like, I have 0 left in my tank. It's like running out of gas. Okay, so here we go. So if we look at early June, okay, so the first day of my backpacking trip was 5,433 calories. And then the next day was 4,300, then 5,000. So like the really strenuous days, and is pretty similar to what I would consume while cycling. And when I was cycling, every 20 miles or so, I would, eat like a granola bar and drink Gatorade along the whole way. But it was just kind of interesting. The takeaway from doing the cycling stuff is that I should be eating a lot more. And it's hard to realize that in the moment, because it doesn't really seem like you're doing too much, but it definitely does add up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll see. But I think when I have the zines done, I want to do the 100 miles, which is basically from my house up to Carlsbad and back. And it's basically the same area where the film lab is located, where if I wanted to just be kind of cheeky, I could just, ride my film up to the lab, drop it off and ride back. But I don't know.
Yeah, if I was able to do 100 miles on the bike and could actually figure out a pathway that would take me there that isn't running a major highway and getting myself killed.
That's kind of important. Yeah.
Yeah. Can't really do 100 miles if you are on mile 17 and crushed by an 18-wheeler.
No.
That would be unfortunate.
Yeah.
I would be able to get, with 100 miles, I'd be able to get to my family's cabin.
Oh, wow.
So I'd be able to get up there. I wouldn't be able to get back. But
yeah,
I mean, once you're there, why do you want to get back?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now the whole eating thing and calories thing is something that's still, I can't wrap my head around, like, the whole tracking of calories, or even thinking of tracking calories, or am I eating enough? Am I not eating enough to get to where I want to be, kind of deal?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that, or at least some of that, comes from not only a lack of general knowledge when it comes to that, what that would be considered body physiology or whatever.
Yeah.
But also having gone through like an eating disorder in the past, and with like the anorexia around that, and not wanting to track calories because of the stress that it puts onto you when you're doing that. Like, am I actually tracking the stuff correctly? And if I want goldfish one day, then I have to count out the like 15 goldfish and then jot it down, or worse, weigh it out when packages are like, oh, you have to have you can have this many grams of this food that gives this many calories. So I think that especially is where I struggle most with figuring everything out when it comes to my diet. Like, I just want to get to a point where I feel good. I have the energy that I would like to have to get through my daily activities, to be able to work out without feeling like overly exhausted for what I'm doing. And just to, obviously, as all of us want, to have that aesthetically pleasing body that's whatever it is, whatever goal we have for it, it ultimately is. Like, I don't need to be shredded or look like Arnold Schwarzenegger and whatever, but at the same time, like, you know.
Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing too, because like with as smart as we think we are as a species, we don't know a lot. Like when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to all that sort of stuff, I don't know. I mean, there's so many times when we think we have it all figured out. I'm like, oh, I'm hungry. And you're like, no, you're actually thirsty. That's what
exactly.
You want. You're not hungry. You're thirsty. You should drink something.
Exactly. It's like one of the big things that I saw was if you think that you're hungry before you sit down for whatever, like if you think that you're hungry in between meals, before you go and grab your snack, have a glass of water.
Yeah.
And it could be like, oh, I'm not hungry. Like you said, I'm just actually thirsty. Like we have like for some reason, it seems like we've lost the mind-body connection that we used to have when it comes to that stuff, that we had hundreds of years ago when we were actually going out and hunting for the food and that kind of deal.
Yeah. And then when we think we are thirsty, it's like, no, you're dehydrated. You're beyond thirsty. I don't know how accurate this is, but there's something I've noticed, especially when I go on my trips. So if I were to take my pointer finger and just kind of extend it out and then curl it all the way back so the top of, or the inside of the finger touches against the inside of my hand, you know, I can curl it all the way there. But I find that if I'm out hiking, and if I think I might be getting a little bit dehydrated, like I cannot close my finger all the way. So that's like my own little guide in terms of, can I close my finger? Yep, I can close. I'm probably pretty good. But if there's a little bit of a gap there, I'm like, oh, I need to drink a bunch more. Because I think that's a way I can tell if I'm a little dehydrated before I know. But there's all these things that I think if we were to look at people who actually live on the land, like if you look at, before, Europeans came here and destroyed everything. When you look at people that actually lived on the land, the Native Americans that lived here, I think they would be far more in touch with everything, even without all the science and all the stuff we have, the Fitbits and this, they'd be far more in touch with things. Anyone that's just out living on the land and more aware of things. I think so much of that we're missing, even though we think that we know it all, but we really have very little knowledge. And I think we're just getting dumber and dumber as a species. The more we lean on technology, I think that the less capable we are of noticing some of these simple things.
Yeah. And I mean, what confounds me the most out of all of this is the whole protein thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, calories notwithstanding, you have so much, like, you have people saying that you need to be eating, a gram of protein for half a gram of protein for every pound of body fat or something like that, or every pound that you are. So if you're 150 pounds, you should be eating 75 grams of protein. And they're saying, well, if you work out this amount each week, then you need to double that or triple it, whatever. And then there are people who are saying, no, we're getting plenty of protein. We actually have an abundance of protein in our diets that we just don't realize. We instead have a massive fiber deficit, which I definitely agree with. Yeah. If you look at any of our diet and what we eat on the daily,
this is trash. Just carb trash. Yeah,
exactly. Like, you go to McDonald's and the most fiber that you get out of that is the lettuce on your burger.
Yeah.
And even then, but that's where it all really gets confusing to me, is like, should I be taking in a lot more protein? Is that going to help me, or is that going to hurt me in the long run? Like, how should I be eating? I almost want someone to, like, I wish I had the money where I could just tell someone, okay, this is what I want, and just cook for me every day.
Yeah.
Tell me when to eat, tell me when to drink, just plan out my life for me around that stuff so that I reach this level. And then in a few years, when I can figure that stuff out on my own through experience of having done it, then I won't need to pay you anymore. But
see, now that is your motivation right there. You need to have that serve as your motivation. You need to have like the personal chef. You need to have personal chef money to control all of that. In order to do that, you've got to get to work doing some presentations.
Yeah. It's not FU money that I want. It's personal chef money.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind that. That'd be nice. I hope you enjoyed our creative banter. You can learn more about Cody's work by visiting his website, codyschultz.com. And you can find my work at benhorn.com. For further discussion, join us at patreon.com/creativebanter. It's a place where we can interact with you, the listener. And although we greatly appreciate those who contribute by joining a tier, discussions are open to everyone, whether you're a paying member or not. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you around next time.